Hello, my friends. Thank you for tuning into Love, Service, Wisdom with myself, Marissa Rada Wepner. I am in conversation today with a very delightful woman, Shelby Hart, who I met first back in May of 2022 when we were at the Los Angeles Music is Medicine event that featured John Hopkins and East Forest and Superposition that was sponsored by Numinous. It was this big to-do in LA, and Shelby was there. She was in our green room, and I didn't know who she was before being introduced to her. I guess that's the case for everybody, right? She was just somebody that was in the green room, and we casually began to have a conversation together, and I liked her. I liked her energy. And then later I found out she was associated with Double Blind, which is a magazine that I've had around my house for the past couple of years, not just associated with Double Blind. She's the co-founder and editor-in-chief of Double Blind magazine, which is a print magazine for psychedelics, biannual print magazine. They're a media company. They've got a really great website that has all kinds of teaching practices, including like how to grow your own mushrooms. They offer monthly memberships and circles and ways to connect. And I'll be teaching actually for Double Blind this coming December 4th, I believe it is. It's a Sunday from 1 to 2:30 p.m. Mountain Time. That's my time zone. On prepping the body for a psychedelic journey. So if you go to Double Blind Mag, MAG.com, you can find all about their incredible work. And it's hands down my favorite magazine on psychedelics because it's the only one I read and subscribe to. So I definitely encourage you to check it out. Two, just as a resource on psilocybin, on mushrooms. If you're curious about the use of mushrooms, how to grow mushrooms, maybe even where to get mushrooms, check out Double Blind and Shelby. That's her work. So Shelby and I met at the Music is Medicine experience, and she was cool. I liked her. I liked her energy a lot. Grounded, but also like bright at the same time. And as part of Double Blind, they created a mini festival, I should say, the end of June that was in or outside of Ojai. And East Forest performed a ceremony there. So we went to that for the ceremony, and Shelby was also there because it was her thing. Mycologia, is that what it was called? Something like that. It had a big word name, this festival. And again, we kind of hit it off. There were some glitches in the programming, and she was wonderful with trying to be accommodating to East Forest wishes. And I was maybe a little bit of a softener go-between. And basically by the end of it, she's like, I like you. Let's get to know each other more. So I was like, ditto, let's do it. So we scheduled this podcast, or actually scheduled a time to just talk, on the phone and get to know each other. And I suggested then we do a podcast. So what you're going to find in this podcast is two women getting to know each other. So it's pretty casual and conversational. It's not like she's not trying to sell Double Blind or convince you of anything to buy or do in this podcast. It's us, Shelby and I, really just spending time together. We touch on a lot of different topics, existential crises, which she's not that happy that I bring up, which is kind of funny, our own backgrounds and histories, and growth as an embodied experience, and many other things. So I think you're going to enjoy it. I'm glad you're getting introduced to Shelby. I apologize. I mean, right now it's the end of October when I'm putting this out, and she and I talked. It might have been like 888 Lions Gate portal. So months ago, this has been on the back burner. And before I turn you over to it, just wanted to say a thank you to everybody who follows this podcast on Spotify and gives it 5 stars, and absolutely too on Apple Podcasts for giving it a 5-star review, writing a little review. It really helps this, side project of mine go a long way. So I really appreciate it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I'm about to go on tour too with the East Forest West Coast Ceremony Tour starting next week, going from Boulder, Colorado, November 1st, all the way around and down and up and all over to Austin, Texas, ending on November 20th. You can go to eastforest.org/tour to find out about the dates, and tickets are going. The first, I think, 4 shows are all sold out now. So check out the website, get yourself a ticket. If you're thinking about going, don't hesitate because the shows are selling out and I want to see you. I want to see you there. So say hi if you do come to the shows. And with that, let me turn you over to this conversation with Shelby Hartman. Welcome, Shelby. Welcome, welcome. We were just getting started with it being unrecorded, which demonstrates exactly what we were talking about, our proficiency with radio and technology and airwaves. And you were telling me about your time in radio and how you got there. So you were going to George Washington University.
Right. I needed to take a class to complete my minor in journalism, and I looked at the schedule of classes for the upcoming semester, and there was only one class that qualified that fit with my schedule, but there was no name for it on the class or on the schedule. I didn't know what the class was on, but I was like, oh, well, it fits with my schedule. And I showed up the first day, and this fabulous journalism professor who ended up becoming my first career mentor, named Michael Friedman, was teaching the history of radio. Welcome to the history of radio. I was like, the history of radio? And it was a fantastic class because he's one of these professors who he had already had an illustrious career working at CBS News for many decades. And he became a professor because he just really loved teaching and he really loved journalism. And he would take us about once a week. We would sit in his office as opposed to the actual classroom. And we would all squeeze into his office and sit around his desk because he had old radios all over his office and he would turn them on and off and he would tell us about different moments in history. And I remember learning about Edward R. Murrow, who is largely considered kind of the father of radio journalism, and how he, during World War II, would stick his microphone out the window of buildings where he was covering the war, and he would capture sounds of the streets, and how that was the invention of what we call nat sound or natural sound. When you listen to NPR or the BBC and they incorporate sounds from the street or the restaurant or the doorbell. And I just became really interested in how we can tell stories with only audio, which is funny because this was long before podcasts were trendy. I don't even think podcasts were around at that point. So a lot of my friends thought it was kind of funny. Everyone was getting into television and Twitter and was just becoming a thing for journalists. And I was all about radio. I loved it.
Amazing. So did you do radio programming? Were you on the air somewhere?
I was never on the air. I got my first, so I got in Mike Friedman, that professor, helped me get an internship at at the CBS News Washington Bureau, which was very exciting for me because I would put on my little pencil skirt and I would go in and I was like, oh yeah, I'm an intern. Um, surrounded by all these real journalists going to Capitol Hill, yada, yada. And then that turned into my first job in journalism. I got hired at the CBS News Washington Bureau. And then when I graduated college, I wanted to come back to LA and I got hired at the local affiliate, KNX 1070 News Radio. You know how it is. It's like every 5-10 minutes they play that damn thing, and if you're sitting in the newsroom, you get to hear it every 5-10 minutes for your entire shift.
Amazing. So you helped to create the stories you would do, but not give the programming on air.
Well,
what was your job?
I was a minion. I was a production minion. You know, it was my first job out of school. So I would, I ran the board. I would so, you know, we go from, there was always 2 anchors. I mean, there's still actually a lot of the people who I started my career with are still working in that newsroom. They're what we call lifers. Like you start there and you retire there. But there's always 2 anchors who are in the studio. And then there's also field reporters who are out in the field covering various things, right? Wildfires or the traffic or whatever. So as the production minion, I would hang out by the board. And when the anchors were going live, I'd turn their volume up. And then when the reporters are going live from the field, you patch them in and you turn their volume up. And then you run the commercials and that kind of thing. I also was in charge if there was breaking news. I was in charge of trying to get people on the phone. So like if a celebrity died, or
breaking news, there was a celebrity
breaking news. No, literally, they had this thing that they probably still have that plays throughout the entire newsroom, including in the bathrooms, that goes breaking news. And like, if you're a production minion and you're like going to the bathroom and you hear that, you don't even like finish. You just pull your pants up and run towards the newsroom.
Oh, that's so funny. It's fascinating. When I was DJing for Radio Boise, I was the only person in the station. So everything you just described, I was doing that in addition to being on air and playing the music. It was highly stressful.
It seems so fun, though. I always had a fantasy of working at a community radio station. I always thought that would be.
I loved it. It was all volunteer. All the DJs are volunteers. Most of the staff is volunteer. So it's really very, very community run and focused. And I loved how I could have those 3 hours in the morning and just really do whatever I wanted and play whatever I wanted and say whatever I wanted. The only thing I couldn't say, of course, were curse words, and those snuck into like a few songs every now and then, we had this button, this big red button called the dump button. It was red. It was right under where some of the, I don't even remember what they're called now. Just like where some of the production equipment was. So I'm facing forward to my left. There's this big red dump, D-U-M-P, dump button, that if something got played that shouldn't be played, you hit it. And then you know how it goes back and there's a 7-second delay. It can somehow take it out of time and space and erase it. And it doesn't go on air. But every time that would happen to me, in my panic response, freeze would initiate. And so I'd freeze and never hit the button on time, which was terrible. I used to get in trouble a lot in the early days for accidentally playing fuck or shit or tits or cock or something. I can say now on a podcast.
Anything you want. Freedom of speech.
Yeah. So you did that for a while. And so your passion, it sounds like, certainly is journalism. Maybe one of them?
One of them, for sure. I think actually most fundamentally, I'm a musician, which is funny because people don't even know that about me. Like people who have known me or known about my career for so long are like, oh, you play music? I'm like, yeah, that's kind of, that was my first love, was music when I was a kid. But My parents
Music
didn't
how and
think,
what format? What did you do? What do you
well,
do now?
I mean, I've been singing. I came out of the womb singing. I think. Uh, um, and and I took voice lessons for a long time. And then when I was 15, I started playing piano and writing music and ukulele. And so I'm not, I've been surrounded when I was 15, I went to Berklee College of Music summer program and I met these kids that were just prolific, the types of kids that sit in their garages and go on their guitar. So like I'm not an instrumentalist the way those types of people are instrumentalists. But I can accompany myself and I can, I use instruments as tools for writing music. And then later I found journalism. So I would say journalism was probably my second love.
So do you have any published music? Like, can we
Uh,
find Shelby's band on Spotify?
I mean, yeah, I do have an EP on Spotify, but I don't tell anyone about it. I guess I'm telling you about it.
Is it piano, ukulele, vocals?
Pretty much, yeah.
And
Yeah.
do you do all the producing yourself and mixing yourself?
No, my friend did it. His name is Louis Diller, and he's a pretty amazing person and multi-instrumentalist and producer. So, and a lot of the stuff that's on there that's not piano or ukulele is him.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know what I'll be doing after our conversation. That's a dream of mine. I am not a musician. I've always been a music lover.
Mm.
And that's what got me into even being a radio DJ, was just loving music. And I was actually thinking about this the other day, how just what an important part of my life listening to music or going to live music has always been. From I mean, I was raised in the Catholic Church and we would sing the hymns, and that's maybe its own sort of strange, sterile experience. But really finding myself through concerts that I would go to when I was a teenager, in the punk rock scene and in the ska scene and just in the live music scene as a kid. Like, that was community for me. And most of my partners being musicians as well. And always wanting to go to live shows and finding my friends kind of make fun of me because I'm known for, like, if we go to a concert, I really dislike the periphery of the crowd where the chatty's happening. And I want to like get in front and center so I can listen to the music, because I feel like the more you listen to it, the more you get out of the experience. And you can have these transcendent experiences just at a rock show, just at an electronic music show, just at any kind of music, if you're willing to like actually listen and pay attention. So the joke is that like I'll just disappear. It's like, where'd Rada go? Oh, we know she's just there, like bobbing her head in the crowd. Last week I went to 4 concerts, and I went to 5 concerts, and 4 of them I took my 10-year-old son with me because I didn't really have anybody else to go with, and he was over it by the end. But I think he'll look back and appreciate the fact that he's been so exposed to music. And then now being a part of Treefort Music Fest and helping locally in Boise plan and produce our music festival that's been going on for 11 years. And then my partner, obviously him being East Forest and being on the road with him, and all of that it's just so, it's so immersive for me, while I've kind of been on the outside and only recently teaching myself to sing and play the harmonium, which is my favorite thing to do. And my lifelong vision, like if somebody were to ask you something like, what's your ultimate life goal? The thing I always think to myself is, I want to lead kirtan, which seems so unobtainable. And I joke with Krishna, like, you're going to put out my kirtan album, won't you? And he's like, yeah, of course I will. Yeah. Shaking his head, no. But I love it. I love it. Yeah. So just reflecting on the deep role that it's played in shaping my life, even while not being what I might call a musician.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm just thinking about it, thinking about our lives, thinking about all of the influences, thinking about all the different access points that we have for growth and spiritual connection. It's really interesting because we're in this world now of plant medicines and psychedelics and spirituality and meditation. But I mean, yeah, I dated a couple metalheads, and moshing is fucking spiritual too, or it
Oh my
can
gosh, I
be.
love a good
Just
mosh
the
pit.
energy of the crowd, feeling like you belong, feeling like there is a container for your catharsis where it's okay to just let it all out, let it all go. I've never been, it's funny, I love music so much. And I'm reminded of that oftentimes when I'm high and just by myself and really tuning into the layers that exist within songs. Passive listening. I listen to music all day. I get up and I turn on reggae when I'm cooking breakfast. And then I listen to, and I listen to music when I do yoga, and I just listen to music all day long. I listen to it in my car.
Do you have often
But
like a song running through your head in the background when you're not listening to music?
no, although right now I actually, for the first time in a long time, have had a song stuck in my head. And for the last few days, it's been To Make You Feel My Love by Garth Brooks, which was then covered by Adele. I've been playing it on the piano. I don't know why. It's such a good song.
Can we hear a verse? Because I don't know it.
Yeah, you do. It's to make you feel my love. Da, 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 da. Yeah. Not ringing a bell?
No.
Oh,
I
well.
might have heard it from Garth Brooks more than Adele, because I don't think I could name an Adele song, sadly.
Adele is so good. I never ever listened to Adele, but for some crazy reason the other day I was doing yoga and I decided to listen to Adele, and I was incredibly moved by it.
And then you've started playing this song and learning it since then?
Yeah.
Awesome.
And now it's stuck in my head.
Yeah, I would find that often a song would just be like lyrics, almost like a mantra. Even when I was a teenager, like just a kid, songs would be in my head, even if I wasn't listening to music.
Yeah, that used to happen to me a lot as a kid, but it doesn't happen to me as much anymore. But I'm realizing that I think I realized the other night, or I remembered how much I enjoy pop music and how there actually is like there is a profundity to it, because oftentimes the messages within it are so universal. That's why it's popular music, because so many different kinds of people can listen to the lyrics and go, oh yeah, I felt that before.
And then it fits in a certain timing, tempo framework too, and structure and arc that's predictable, that we've all been conditioned to know, right? Bridge, chorus, bridge, or whatever it is.
But it doesn't have to be unimaginative or basic.
True.
Just because it follows a template.
And
although
templates
so much of it
can be great.
Yeah. For writing music, you mean, or in general?
Just like, you using the word basic, it's like, and it's wonderful and it's fine and it's still enjoyable. It's like candy almost. It's like, yeah, that can feel good too. It doesn't always have to be like artsy and avant-garde and different and inventive. It can just be like a straight up pop song, and we love it.
Okay, so one time when I'm pivoting a little, but it's related. One time when I was on ayahuasca, I had a vision of this, just this like quintessential American dad sitting in a bathing suit on a beach chair on the sand on 4th of July with like a rainbow umbrella and a cooler, and he's drinking his beer. And in the narrative that I had about this man when I was in the journey is that he has spent so much of his life unhappy in a job that he's unhappy in. And maybe he's had some strains on his marriage as well. Maybe he's had some health issues. But on 4th of July, he's like sitting on his chair and he's got his beer and he's got his umbrella and his buddies are there and his kids are there and he's just happy. And it's so simple and it's so, quote, basic, but he's just happy. And I think for me, like, more and more as I get older, I'm like, yeah, I just want to sit on my porch and like read the newspaper with a cup of tea. I just want to spend my, I just want to put my hands in the soil. I want to learn how to keep a tomato plant alive. I want to have an herb garden. I don't need to go anywhere. I don't need to do anything.
Totally. You're totally right. I think it takes like having experiences where you think, when I gratify my senses in this extraordinary way with the drugs and the music and the tropical vacations and the exposure and the people and the celebrity and the and it's all there, and you're still just you then realize that simple is where it's at. And the back porch and the garden and the quiet is just as gratifying, if not perhaps more gratifying. One, because it's sustainable and it's true. That's what I'm finding. I'm 43. You're younger than me, but I've been in this like transition through my 40s of, I would say my 30s were effing amazing, like so fun and so many beautiful, just like ecstatic experiences through my 30s that I'm finding myself like settle down more too and enjoying it and feeling a grief also of like who I was and what I was, but really like leaning into more just where I'm at. Part of it too is being a mom. I mean, I've got my 10-year-old that I mentioned, but an 18-year-old also that's going off to college in a month.
Wow.
And I like being a mom.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. It seems like you have it a lot figured out from where I sit. I'll just say that much.
Well, I'm older than you too. Again, how old are you?
I'm 32.
Yeah.
I'm not judging myself. I'm just offering like an observation that, it's like, I don't know. When you and Krishna told me that you lived in Idaho, I was like, that's amazing. I felt like as soon as you told me that, I had an image of what your life is like there, because my grandparents live in Idaho. Oh. And also my best friend's mom lives outside of Boise. And like I don't know, again, like I feel like a little weird because it's like, I wasn't making too many assumptions about you or your life, but like I did get this, I just felt like from what I know about Krishna's music and from having talked to you a little bit when we first met, I was like, oh, I feel like they just are like doing their thing in nature. And I'm so happy for them. Like when that was kind of the impression I got.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we just do our thing. We're both incredibly blessed with our careers and our life, and that we can mostly craft our days to look like how we want them to be. And we're not at the pull or the whims of others. Not that I didn't have periods of time where I had to work through that, but I feel like I'm reaching a newer place in my 40s that's even better than like all those super party fun ecstatic times of my 30s. And my 20s were really unconventional because I did my yoga teacher training when I was 22. And then right after that, and that was in Costa Rica, and I had been in Florida before then. I got pregnant with my daughter, who's 18 now, and moved to rural Montana. So I spent like my 20s, that would be like prime bohemian, loose, whatever, being a mom in the middle of nowhere.
Wow.
With my family. A single mom.
Wait, why did you move to Montana?
Well, my family had moved from Montana to Montana from Florida when I started college. And so I stayed in Florida to go to college. They all moved to Montana. I went to Costa Rica after graduating to do my teacher training, and then chose to have my daughter, Maya, with this guy that I met there, which is a whole other story by itself. And then we were living in Costa Rica, and my mom got pregnant with her last, my younger
Whoa.
brother, Morgan. So my
Oh
mom was
my God.
pregnant the same time I was. And so then I
Wow.
thought, well, this is unusual and serendipity. So I should spend the pregnancy as much as I can with my mom because they're both pregnant right now. So I went to Montana
Wow.
when I was about 6 months pregnant and spent the summer pregnant with her. And then we ended up having our babies on the same day in the same hospital.
Wow. That is crazy. That's
And then I stayed
insane.
there for 5 years after that because then my
Wow.
daughter, my brother was like my daughter's brother. They were like little twins.
Mm. Wow. So how long did you stay in Montana for?
From 2003 to 2008. And then I moved out to California for a hot minute
Okay, by yourself?
with my daughter, Maya. Yeah. And
Well, yeah.
yeah, with just by myself. And I was getting my graduate degree at what was called ITP, the Institute of Transpersonal Psychology. I was in their PhD program. I started that in 2005. And so one of my colleagues that was in my cohort, he was in addiction recovery, the recovery field, and he wanted to open up a transpersonal eco psychology based residential substance abuse treatment center in Sebastopol, and he asked me to come help him get it started. So Maya and I moved to Sebastopol and lived on
Wow.
40 acres there, getting this center up and running all through 2008. And then the financial crisis happened that November, and the center that we had just got up and running lost all of its funding and had to close.
Wow.
And meanwhile, I'd been in a long distance relationship with this guy that I'd met in Montana. He was a physician and he was in Seattle. And so Maya and I moved when she was 5 to Seattle through 2009. And then he was from Idaho and really wanted to move to Boise. Like his dream job was being a doctor at the VA hospital in Boise and teaching for the University of Washington as a I don't know, a doctor who teaches doctors to be doctors or whatever. So he wanted to move to Boise, and that's what got us to Boise. So I've been in Boise since 2009.
Hmm. And when did you meet Krishna?
He and I met. Did you ever hear of Reality Sandwich?
Yeah.
Okay, so 2009, when I was in Seattle, I had been working my ass off my whole life. And then I was in this interim when the center had closed. I was living with my fiance at the time, or maybe it was just my partner at the time. We got engaged that summer. But I was living with Bill, and we were going to move to Boise that summer. So I had like 9 months in Seattle where I wasn't going to work and I wasn't going to work because we were going to move. So I remember this very distinctly, being there and thinking to myself, okay, what did you like to do before you were a mom? Like, what were you into before these
Mm.
past 5 years, and you've been working your ass off, going to school and being a mom and
Mm.
working all the time? And I remembered how I loved the Maya and Mayan culture. That's why my daughter's named Maya, actually. I was like, oh yeah,
Mm.
I loved Maya and indigenous cultures. So I looked up, this is 2009, just Googled that, and up came Daniel Pinchbeck's 2012 Return of Quetzalcoatl book. And I checked it out from the library and I read it. And like in the back of that book, he had a link about Reality Sandwich. And so then I Googled Reality Sandwich. And at that time, they were like an online platform, kind of like Double Blinds, but online, where it was like psychedelics, Burning Man, drugs, counterculture, crop circles, aliens, spirituality, all the things, all the buckets. A little more fringe than double blind. Double blind's more sophisticated, let's say, for sure.
We don't talk about aliens that often.
Yeah. Well, Reality Sandwich did. Sorry, this is a long story. I'm getting to Krishna. So I started to write for Reality Sandwich. I reached out to Daniel and sent him an email, and they were looking for writers at the time. And I would write little articles for them for the online magazine a few times a week. And then they had like this whole side thing called the Volver that was like their social media platform. And then out of that, they had a retreat in Boulder, Utah. And I thought, I'm going to go to this retreat in Boulder, Utah. And that was October of 2009. And so fast forward, I'd moved down to Boise. I said to my partner, I'm going to go to this psychedelics, weirdo, fringe, Burning Man retreat for like 5 days by myself. I'll be back. I went down there, had an amazing time, and went back in 2010. So 2009 and 10, I was really connected with the Reality Sandwich team, even though I was in Idaho and they're mostly out of New York. And Krishna had gone to the same retreat in 2008. So we knew a bunch of the same people, but we didn't know each other. And one of our mutual friends, this guy, Michael Robinson, who was the founder of Reality Sandwich, he said to Krishna once, when he was driving back because then Krishna started to spend a ton of time in Boulder. He lived in Portland at the time. So he would drive from Boulder, Utah to Portland back and forth. And in the middle is Boise. So our friend Michael said, oh, you're going to drive through Boise. You got to meet Marissa. She's one of us. She's in our family. She's there in Boise. So got a cold call from this guy named Trevor, who's like, my friend Michael said we should meet. And I was actually a Thursday morning because I was in the radio station. I said, I'd love to meet up, but I'm in this radio station till noon. But if you're driving through, you can come by and just see me in the station. So him and his wife, Krishna, when he was married before, his wife, Karina, they came in and met me in the station. And we hung out and I played like an East Forest CD on the radio, a track, and he gave me a CD. And all that kind of stuff, which was so sweet. And then we would just see each other in similar circles. So that was maybe like 2014. We became friends, and then we would see each other at festivals and see each other at events and just keep in touch here and there. It was just like, kind of like you, just somebody like you see when you're out and you slowly develop a relationship with. And then in 2017, we both were divorcing at the same time. And then I looked at him and I thought, you're kind of cute. And we've been together since then.
You just said you're kind of cute, and then he was like, you're kind of cute too.
Internally, that was my internal. I was talking to myself. I'm like, oh, I didn't realize it before, but you're actually kind of cute. I just turned that on. And now, when we were getting together, kind of merging when we were divorcing, I remember explicitly feeling like, you have to tell this guy you are not getting into a relationship. Because I wasn't planning on getting into a relationship. And I said that to him, like, just so you know, like, we are not getting into a relationship. It's fun getting to know you. You're amazing, but I don't know if I could do this, all that kind of thing. And we've only been together since then.
Mm-hmm.
We are most definitely in a relationship. Now it's 5 years later.
I mean, really, that's the best way, I think, is organically just unfolds.
Yeah, it just unfolded. It felt, a lot of it, it just feels like a miracle in some way. Because when we met, we were both like so in our things and in our lives. Like there was never a thought like this would be somebody that I'd be in a relationship with. And now we're Radha and Krishna. That's why I remember when I was telling you the story backstage at the Music is Medicine Numinous event in LA in May.
Yeah.
Ram Dass said, you're Radha and he's Krishna. And that to me was so impactful because it was Ram Dass saying to me, you can be different as a partner in a relationship. You can finally lean fully in. You don't have to be so independent. You can be a partner.
Yeah. One of my favorite books is The Prophet by Khalil Gibran. I don't know if you've read that, but there's a chapter in there about partnership. Maybe it's about marriage. I can't remember, but it
Yeah, it's
talks
often
about,
quoted in marriage ceremonies. There's a
oh, is
Khalil
it?
Gibran quote of like being two trees next to each other.
Right, right, right. So basically the idea being that you are, you're together, but you're also separate. And yeah, I've always held that metaphor close as sort of the pinnacle of the ideal relationship. That you can truly have your heart intertwined with another's and simultaneously be your own person,
Mm.
and know that you can rely on yourself for the things that, I don't want to say the things that matter most, because I actually take issue with this idea that you have to be everything for yourself by yourself before you can be with another. Like, I actually don't think that that's true. And I don't think that that's a helpful narrative, because it makes people feel like they need to be like a little enlightened Buddha on top of a mountaintop before they can be in
No,
relationship with other
we can
people.
only figure out ourselves in partnership. I can only get enlightened through relationship. It's not that I've done it already. I'm only learning.
Right.
I've learned so much about myself since my relationship started with Krishna. I feel like I've grown as a human exponentially, way more than I did it's until then. I've become so much better. I couldn't have done it without him, without his support and his reflection and his patience and us being with each other as we individually have grown. It's amazing.
Yeah, I think back on the relationships that I've had and how I was in some of them and how I am now. It's wild. Some days I feel like I've come so far, and some days I feel like I'm who I've always been, with all the same shticks, as my mother likes to say.
Are you in partnership now?
No, I'm not, but if any single men are listening to this podcast, you know where to find me.
She's available, folks.
I have always dated musicians as well. Spiritually inclined musicians.
Would you put that on your want ad still?
Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, it's just about, I mean, you want to have, to me, there's two components. One, there's kind of like the X factor pheromone, like I just really like you kind of thing that is hard to pin down. And then there's all the like foundational, like we can communicate, I respect you, we have similar interests, we can, and then I think both components are important. For me, like music is such an important part of my life that I would have a hard time. I don't need to date a musician, but I would have a hard time dating someone who doesn't want to just literally lay and listen to an album in silence with me and go, wow, did you hear how that instrument just came in and out? Wasn't that amazing? Because I just want to be able to share in that joy with another person. Like, cooking for me is huge as well. Like, to date someone who doesn't really care about food, I don't know about that. But it's like with all things in life, I think that it's good to set an intention, to have a vision, to be walking a path, and also to know that, like, what is that old adage about you make plans and God laughs, or life is what happens when you're busy planning other things, or just this idea that, like, you get right with yourself and you meditate and you do your yoga and you step forward into the world intentionally, knowing that there's only so much we can predict, and knowing that at some point along the way, like, I could end up falling in love with someone who, lives halfway across the world and is in their 50s and has 7 children. You know what I mean? Like, whoever I'm not gonna, say yes or no to anything before I've, actually had the chance to take a look at it and ask myself and my heart, like, is this what I want?
I think of it more about how I want to feel in a particular thing versus how the thing will look. Because then it can look any way as long as I feel a particular way.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Sort of like, do you, are you into somatic therapy? Are you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That's what I kind of figured. Yeah. So the wisdom of the body.
Yeah, but even
all of
like
that.
emotionally feel like when I was, let's say, manifesting a partner when I was younger, like all those years I was in Montana and there were only cowboys to date, I had a phrase or a mantra that was like, and I'll give it to you guys. This is my secret relationship manifestation mantra. I'm so grateful for my romantic, spiritual, satisfying relationship. It was just that. I want it to feel romantic and lovey. I want us to have spirit, and I want to be satisfied. And the satisfaction felt really key to me. Like I just wanted to feel good.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel that.
So that's what I mean by how I want to feel in it.
Mm.
And then now I have Krishna, and it's all those things and more. I'm so grateful for it. I tell him like, I love you somehow more than the beginning. It just like it just feels like it's expanding as we grow. As we expand, our love is expanding as we are expanding as humans.
Yeah. My mom says the same thing about my dad, that she loves him more every day, which is nice.
And before, honestly, I wasn't a good partner. Like I had my own wounds and hangups and traumas and baggages and just I think having gone through the crucible of divorce too, it's so painful. It's so painful. You learn so much of what you're not going to do again.
Yeah. Life's such a journey. I was walking my dog the other day and I was thinking about just all the inevitable ups and downs of life and how they can't be predicted. Maybe someday I'll get cancer. Maybe someday I'll get dementia. It's not unlikely because both those things run in my family, you know. Maybe I'll fall in love and have children, and that person and I will get divorced and it will be incredibly painful. Maybe, I don't know. Anything could happen. Anything could happen. And I don't know. I guess I've just been thinking about that more lately because it's easy to be really consumed by the present moment, especially if the present moment contains challenges that we're trying to navigate through. And it's been helpful for me to remember the long view and to remember that, Shelby, you're 32. I mean, likely I have many more decades on this planet. Who knows what will become of Double Blind? I hope that it becomes a legacy outlet like Rolling Stone, and that many decades from now, people look back on the magazine and think, wow, it was such a, it played such an important role at this moment in psychedelic history. But, who the heck knows? And especially with someone like me, I mean, I really am open to like having a completely different career in music or just moving to a farm, or anything could happen, really.
So you're having these thoughts a little bit about, it sounds like your uncertainty around your place in time right now and what's going on right now. And then thinking about the future was helping you to settle into what is right now.
I actually think that a lot of positive things are happening right now in my life.
Yeah, seems that way.
I mean, I love my parents so much, and they live close by. I love my dog. She's the sweetest little angel. I live in a cute little house. It's old. Everything's always breaking. There's no AC, but I love it. It was built in 1904. It's got a lot of character. So there's a lot of positive things happening. I guess for me, I've just always been existential. You know, I majored in philosophy, discovered existentialism discovered existentialism and acid when I was 18. Bad combination.
Question, do you ever come out of your trips in an existential crisis?
Well, that certainly happened when I was 18, and I could tell you all about my teenage existential crisis and how I tried to delete all the phone numbers in my cell phone because I was like, nothing matters, no one matters. I was feeling extremely nihilistic, but I had a flip phone at the time, and Verizon literally wouldn't let me delete all the numbers at once because like it's some kind of error. They're like, you can't possibly mean to do this. I was like, fuck.
It's a safety feature.
I was sitting in the Zen garden at my liberal arts college trying to delete all my cell phone numbers. But anyway, and then after the first time I did ayahuasca at 25, I had a tough couple of months for sure. But otherwise, I think generally speaking, especially in the last like 7 years or so, when I emerged from a psychedelic experience, it just gives me clarity, levity. Sometimes I realize I need to make certain changes, like, oh, I should change where I'm living, or I should get out of this relationship I'm in. But it hasn't, at least in recent years, sent me into this kind of existential tailspin. Nothing matters. What am I doing with my life? Luckily.
Well, I ask because it comes up for me sometimes.
Still, it does.
Yeah, even currently. Wow. But if it's on, it has to be like a high enough dose. And then I think it's like, where nothingness rubs up against everything, the all and the void overlap or are the same thing. You can look at it as the all or as the void, which that's what propels me into the existentialism. Maybe I'm just dopamine depleted too and hungry.
You mean the void is in not knowing what matters?
The void is like the Buddhist term for oneness. Like the Hindus think of like, it's all one, it's all everything. And on the flip side of that, in Buddhist traditions, it's known as the nothing or the void.
Right.
But they're the same thing. Just different ways of naming the ineffable.
And why does that create a sense of existentialism?
Because then it gets into that, well, what does it even matter? If everything is all everything and oneness and nothingness, then nothing matters. When I'm blown out too big.
Right. I guess I just can't feel that way because I always come back to how much love I have for people. And that always feels like it matters no matter what.
Well, that's like the life raft. That is what saves you in those existential seas, for sure. And that's what brings me back as well. And like Joseph Campbell, his quote, the meaning of life is the meaning that you give it.
Yeah. I mean, this is we're going down a whole rabbit hole that could be another hour-long podcast, but I guess I'll just say that fundamental idea that there's no objective truth or values and that we all create our own meaning, that was the seed of my teenage existential crisis. And coming into the wisdom of my body and learning about Eastern philosophies that are more simplistic and less cerebral and nihilistic, and honestly having experiences that have felt to me like a connection to the divine, largely through ayahuasca, has blown away any remnants of existentialism that I ever had. I don't like, I don't care anymore to talk about whether there's objective truth, like on an intellectual level, whether there's objective truth and values. I know what I care about, and I know that I care deeply.
Mm-hmm. Like you just said, it's an embodied experience. Love, truth as an embodied experience. It's not something to be, I think of it like mental masturbation sometimes, those conversations.
Yeah.
You don't need to do that anymore. It's all just mental speculating where it's like, I have felt in my body blank. And now you can't argue with that. You can't argue with me with your objective philosophy because I have felt it.
Yeah. Totally, totally. And I also just, when it comes to discourse in general, I always have to come back to, like, why are we having this conversation? You know, when you think about, political debate, for example, what is the point of discourse? Is it to just like tell everyone what you already believe? Or is it to actually engage in a conversation of active listening and shifting of perspectives and opening of hearts and minds? I don't care to have a conversation with someone who just wants to talk at me. And I think that, like, again, just going back to this idea of like, engaging in some kind of like cerebral intellectual conversation around whether there is or isn't meaning, like, what is the point of that conversation? I just really, we could have the conversation if we just think it's interesting. People talk because it entertains both people involved. That's like most of what talking is.
Mm-hmm.
But
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I'm making sense here. But
Yeah. I get it for sure. I get exactly where you're coming at. I mean, and for me, the reason to ask that question is I was looking for help. Do you have guidance in the realm of existential crisis? And it sounds like you do, and you answered it beautifully. It's like at the end of the day, it's love. And remembering that is the antidote.
I think also these days I'm coming back a lot to just tending to ourselves in the most basic ways possible. Because when I was 18, hope my parents don't listen to this, but I was going to say when I was 18, I was smoking cigarettes. I was like running around in my combat boots. I thought I was like so cool. I was so tortured. And like, and I was so smart because I was reading existentialism, and F you if you don't understand it, you're just not as smart as I am. And, now I'm just like, okay, you're unhappy. So are you drinking water? Are you sleeping? When was the last time you ate vegetables? Like parents tell their kids, right? Eat your broccoli. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry if it sounds, overly simplistic, but really, like, it's so easy to forget these fundamental pillars because we live in this culture of like self-help books and podcasts and, and also the mind is just tricks us into thinking that the more we think about something, the closer we're going to get to coming to some kind of resolution about it. Mm-hmm. And that's not the way out.
No, you're totally right. You're 100% like on my little pulpit speaking my language of just tending to the basic needs of your body. And I think I mentioned to you briefly, like when we met in May, I was kind of on more of a kick then, like diving into just even the role that the body plays in psychedelics and where it's set and setting. I feel like the missing piece is the body. Like, let's not just talk about mindset. Let's talk about how do you take care of the basic needs of your body, which might sound really elementary or like you're talking to children, but I think it's easy to skip for a lot of folks, or a lot of my basic guidance is like, brush your teeth. You don't need to wear makeup. Wear comfortable clothes. Drink water. Be in a comfortable environment. Have food ready for your body afterwards. walk outside. This is how you get your animal body ready for an experience, which affects your mindset, which affects the set. But you go at it from the angle of caring for your body.
Yeah, totally. Totally. We interviewed a really fantastic woman who goes by Omalewa. She also goes by the entheogenic midwife. She's based in Jamaica. She's a kind of a mentee of Kalindi Lee. And she was talking about how to prepare for how she prepares for a mushroom experience and how she recommends to people that they prepare for the experience. And I remember her saying, don't let a single dead skin cell into that ceremony. Like, you get into that bath, you exfoliate yourself, you rub that scalp, you freaking clean under your nails.
100%.
Like, get ready.
Yes. Because you're asking your body to ingest a foreign substance so that you can have an experience. So treat your body well, which you're asking it to do a big thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Will she be featured in Double Blind?
Well, we did a webinar with her, I don't know, probably a year ago. And yeah, I would love to, work with her more. She's amazing. We're kind of on the train right now of just highlighting people who we think are doing really great work, particularly people who haven't gotten a lot of visibility in the past. We featured a lot of kind of the bigger names in psychedelics on Double Blind. Paul Stamets and Rick Doblin and Rick Strassman and all those guys are amazing, and we love them, and we are so grateful that they support Double Blind. And also, like you were saying, you're trying to uplift women more. I mean, and I'm sure you have too, have encountered so many just magical women through walking this plant medicine path. And I'm like, I don't give a shit how many Instagram followers you have or whether you have a PhD from Johns Hopkins. Like, you know what's up, and people need to hear you talk. Period. End story.
Yeah, I respect that a lot about Double Blind. Even though you featured, the heavy hitters, let's say, it's one of the, I don't know, most enjoyably put together magazines, even down to just like the paper.
Thanks.
It feels good in my hands.
Kinds of paper. Believe it or not, there are many different kinds of paper. I've had to learn about so many things I never thought I would have to learn about.
Well, this is high quality paper, high quality images. There's always art towards the middle of it. There's longer pieces, there's shorter pieces. It's definitely the underrepresented, getting into trans or queer or, fringes. You have that one piece on like BDSM, I don't know the acronym. BDSM.
Bondage, domination, sadomasochism, which...
It's just the whole spectrum. It's really satisfying. I literally have Double Blinds on my coffee table, in my bathroom, and next to my bed.
Oh, cute. Yeah. I mean, that's the intention. People thought we were crazy starting a print magazine, and it hasn't been easy, but honestly, I hate screens. It's better than nothing. It's awesome that we can talk right now, but I just, don't get me going on my soapbox about how screens are just ruining everything that we treasure, including our ability to be present and to cultivate true intimacy with other humans, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So for me, like, it just was not an option to have psychedelic storytelling only on the internet. No. People don't engage with content. I hate the word content too, but people don't engage with stories or journalism that well on the internet. And we can see that because we have all the little bots that track how far people get down in the article. And most people who like an article on Facebook never even click on it and actually read it.
Yeah, true story. True story. With a magazine, it's not going anywhere. We get to spend time together. I can get to know you slowly. You can be here for months and I revisit you. I have this weird quirk that I've had my entire life where I pick up magazines and I read them from the back. I don't know why, but it's my preferred way of reading a magazine. It's from the end, from the last page.
Wow, interesting. So now I have to open up the most recent issue that's sitting here and see what you would have seen if you had opened it from the back. Oh, it's actually kind of nice from the back. Yeah, not bad. Not a bad experience.
It's my preferred method.
Like when I was a kid and I learned that, I don't even know if this is true or not, but another kid told me that monkeys open bananas from the other side.
From the bottom.
From the bottom. So I started opening my bananas that way, and I opened them that way for years because when you open them when you open them the way that you're taught to open them, if they don't open readily, then the top gets mushy because you pull the handle back and forth and it smushes the top of the fruit.
Exactly.
Much more efficient to do it the other way around.
From the bottom. The monkeys have perfected it. We can trust them. I wouldn't say that there's a reason that reading the magazine from the end is the most efficient way. It's just the preferred.
Yeah.
So Double Blind, it comes out twice a year. Is that right?
Comes out twice a year. Yes.
When's the next issue due?
The next issue is coming out in December, and we're working on it right now. It takes a while because we have to have a month for editing, then a month for design, a month for all the art and photography, a month for design, a month to print it. So we start way before it actually comes out, but we have most of it mapped out already, and it's looking really good. So I'm excited.
Well, I look forward to getting my copy. Yeah. I really look forward to it. Where can people find you, and where can they find Double Blind?
Well, they can find Double Blind on all the platforms. Our website is doubleblindmag.com. We're at Double Blind Mag on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook. We don't have a Snapchat. If you want to make one for us, you can do that. I'm speaking to your audience. If there's someone listening,
I don't have a Snapchat account.
Yeah, I don't know. People can follow me on Instagram if they want. I don't really post anything. I don't do much online, so I'm not super accessible, but
do you have a Shelby website?
Not really. I mean, I haven't updated it in like 5 years.
Not really. It's like a kind of, but don't go there.
If people want to DM me, if people want to get in touch with me, they can DM me on Instagram. My Instagram is at Shelby, Anne Hart, Hart. But in general, we just like to be a resource for folks. So if anyone's like thinking about doing mushrooms or wants to go to the Amazon and do ayahuasca or whatever, like we have classes, we have webinars. We're also just like always available to answer people's questions. So I always like to just put that out there that we want to be, a free resource for people wherever they're at in their journey. So don't hesitate to reach out.
Yeah, I know when you go to Double Blind, it pops up like learn to grow mushrooms at home. The free kit or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Yeah, well, we're trying to empower folks to grow their own medicine, so that if you can grow it yourself, then, you're good, basically. So.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And don't forget, we can find you on Spotify.
Oh, yeah, you can. And I mean, if you want to, you can look me up on Spotify. I have 4 songs on there. It's Shelby, ShelbyAnne on Spotify.
Shelby Ann.
Yeah, I have my EP is called Becoming, which I came up with before Michelle Obama released her book, BT Dubs.
She got it from me. I can't wait to give a listen. I love that you're a musician, and that's a through line too. After this conversation, I can feel why it just seems like there's a resonance between us. I just love your energy.
Thanks. Likewise.
thanks for doing all the good work in the world.
Thanks to you too. One day at a time. Here we go. Upwards and onwards.
And right here. Yeah. Well, that'll be the end for now. To be continued.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.